having a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. Research shows that we're happier, healthier, and we live longer when we have something to look forward to when we wake up in the morning. To live creatively is to live with a sense of purpose.
Hello, my creative friend. Welcome to the BDI Create Today podcast. This is a podcast where we'll discover the who, what, where, when, why, and how you can be creative or have more creativity. And together, we'll explore the extraordinary impact creativity can have in your life, in your heart, mind, body, and soul. And if we haven't met yet, I am Beth Buffington, a licensed artist, digital illustration instructor, and a creative coach living just outside of the windy city of Chicago, Illinois. But mostly, I am someone who is curious about how creativity can weave its way into our lives. Now, each week we're going to look at one or more of the sparkly facets that make up the ever-changing kaleidoscope that is creativity. Hello, my creative friend. Welcome back to another episode of Create Today with Beth Buffington. You know, I love to bring in amazing guests to talk to you about creativity. Today, I have a guest that I cannot wait for you to meet. Her name is Diane Dreher, and she is a PhD and the author of 8 nonfiction books that include the best-selling Tao of Inner Peace and her new book, Pathways to Inner Peace. She's an award-winning university professor and a positive psychology researcher whose work on hope has been recognized internationally. Her books, workshops, and webinars help us meet the challenges of our time, and we can meet those challenges with greater courage, creativity, and hope because Diane is here today to speak with us. Diane, welcome. I am so glad to have you with us here today. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and how creativity has really been part of your background.
Well, Beth, I am delighted to be here today, and I identify, I guess, myself as a lifelong learner. I follow my curiosity, and it leads me to very interesting places. I began, I guess, my personal search in college when I began meditating. And meditation practice led me to Eastern philosophy. I wrote 3 books on Taoism. But I was also just fascinated by Renaissance literature and the whole period of the Renaissance. Because in the Middle Ages, all the theologians said that only priests, monks, and nuns had a calling, and everybody else just worked in order to, satisfy their deficiency needs. Well, what happened in the Renaissance within one generation was that theologians began saying everyone had a calling. God had given everyone special gifts, and they were expected to discover them and use them to serve their community, to fulfill their destiny, and to serve God. So since people were told they had special gifts to bring forward, guess what? They started using them. A poor boy from the English countryside whose parents were illiterate and signed their names with an X found his calling on the London stage as William Shakespeare. And another little boy in Italy whose father wanted him to be a cloth merchant so he could bring money into the family, kept drawing pictures, and his father would beat him saying, "Michelangelo, don't draw, it's a waste of your time." Fortunately for all of us, Michelangelo discovered his calling and brought his creative gifts to the world. So in the Renaissance, they believed that everyone had special gifts. Fast forward a few hundred years, the positive psychologists Martin Seligman and Christopher Peterson did an international study, and they discovered that there are 24 character strengths common to all humanity, and that each one of us has top 5 of those strengths. We all have all 24, but the top 5. And if we discover them and use them and bring them forward, we're healthier, happier, and more successful. So I became fascinated by the whole concept and finding our own personal renaissance, discovering our creative gifts and bringing them forward because the world really needs us to do that.
Oh my gosh. That is such a great way to introduce yourself. First of all, I mean, just imagining if Michelangelo had not been told you have a calling, and Shakespeare, what if he wouldn't have been allowed to do his writings? I mean, how many people these days are covering up some amazing callings that they have, and we are losing some incredible talent. And that is what this podcast is all about, is helping people discover that we are all creative and there is a calling inside of us that we're really responsible for letting people know what our creative message is. So tell us more. What do we need to know next, Diane?
What do we need to know next? We all need to know that human beings, unlike other life forms on this planet, we can't run as fast as an antelope. We can't fly under our own power. We can't swim across vast oceans. What we can do is we can create. And we have these cave paintings that are thousands of years old, where human beings would paint pictures of animals on the wall, recording what they saw, celebrating, perhaps with gratitude for what they found. And that's our greatest strength as human beings. I studied Renaissance literature at UCLA, got a PhD in Renaissance literature, and began teaching. And as a professor, I figured it was my duty to help my students discover the light within them, their own creative gifts. And it was something that they could bring forward. And there's a great sense of joy and power in doing that personally. But it also, as we know from Michelangelo and Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I, who spoke 6 languages, grew up in a rather dysfunctional family. Her father was Henry VIII, who executed her mother, Anne Boleyn, and had 6 wives, and very dysfunctional family. But she found her calling in books and studying history, learning languages. And when she became Queen of England, she could speak to the ambassadors in their own languages. And she was a patron of Shakespeare. She celebrated the arts at her court and brought about the golden age of the English Renaissance. So women and men discovered something within them, and sometimes through hardship. Elizabeth was imprisoned by her sister, Mary Tudor, because, not only sibling rivalry, but a lot of politics were involved. But she found it in the darkness, she sought the light. And for her, the light was in books, which were her friends, which then gave her a lot of wisdom so that she became an incredibly powerful queen.
Mm. Oh, there's so much to take away from that. Tell us, there just all so much. I'm almost speechless. You have told us so much already. And the fact that you studied Renaissance, and from that, you took away this nugget of the calling and shared that with your students. That is a really gifted idea for an educator to share, instead of let's memorize all the dates of when all the paintings were made. I mean, I had to do that in college, but those aren't the things that stick with you. The things that stick with you are, what can I learn from what they learned? Each generation has their moment in the sun, and we need to get them up to speed as quickly as possible so they can be really sage and make wise choices about how to do good things with the world. So knowing that that's what you were sharing with your students, that's golden, Diane. I love that.
Well, thank you. My father was an Air Force pilot, so we moved all the time. I went to 10 different schools before I graduated from high school and had to leave all my friends behind. So what I did find was that I could go to the local library and I could find books that I had read before. And that these became my virtual friends, my virtual mentors. I read novels like Little Women, and I read Eleanor Roosevelt's autobiography when I was in high school. And she became such a mentor to me, such a role model, that I have a picture of her above my desk, actually, to this day, because she overcame great adversity. Again, found a sense of compassion because she had suffered. Her mother called her names, told her she was ugly and worthless. Her father was an alcoholic. Both parents died when she was a child. She was orphaned, lived with an aunt, and was really living in a wealthy family, but was really an exile in her own family and felt like she wasn't worth anything. And she went to high school in England where the teacher, Mademoiselle Silvestre, saw something in Eleanor and told her she had something special to offer. And Eleanor recognized that fact, worked in settlement houses, helped people out of poverty, and so impressed her distant cousin, Franklin Roosevelt, that he married her. And then she became this incredible first lady. So I read about these people and thought, oh, out of darkness, there can be light. And indeed, Adlai Stevenson said of Eleanor at her memorial service, she would rather light a candle than curse the darkness, and her light has warmed the world. We each have that light within us. I had a professor in college who helped me find my own light, and I felt that, well, it was my duty and my destiny to remind people that we all have something very valuable, very unique.
Let me ask you this question. In our world today, young people are inundated with TikTok and Instagram and all sorts of social media where influencers are the name of the game and the person of the hour, and looking similar or doing things that are trending. Those are so loud in our world. How does a person pull themselves away from all of that to celebrate the fact that their fingerprints are different, and that's the best part about them? Finding that authenticity in them and thinking it's okay not to blend in. How do we celebrate the uniqueness that is us in today's world?
Wow, what a beautiful question. There's a big difference between information and inspiration. Our world gives us a whole lot of information, some of which is actually not true.
Right.
And there are influences, people online who don't know what they're talking about. And yet they give advice to people. And a lot of young people are searching to find out who they are. It's what Erik Erikson called the crisis of identity. When we leave childhood and start walking toward adulthood, we need to discover who we can be as an adult. And all this stuff that comes at them from all these different directions saying, you need to look like this and you need to fit in. That really keeps us from discovering our own uniqueness. Among other things, I'm a positive psychology coach, and I have clients who are, many of them, just having graduated from college, looking for a career. And a recent client was trying to do what everybody else was doing. And I was trying to persuade him. Fortunately, he just got a job offer, so yay. Because he followed his own inclination, his own intuition. He wasn't doing what everybody else was doing. He said, look, there are thousands of people out there doing the same thing. How do you distinguish yourself as really relevant, as someone who fits in a different way, who can bring in new possibilities to this job, this career? And he latched onto it. So he's perhaps a young modern day Michelangelo has just got with. But we need to turn that stuff off. And there's research, Jonathan Haidt among them, who say that this is very bad for young people's brains. Our brains develop their adult connections between age 18 and 25. So that if we are developing our adult connections with all this garbage coming at us, telling us we're not okay, advertisers make us feel inadequate until we buy their product, which is going to solve all our problems, right? It's a pretty simple, manipulative ploy. And a lot of influencers on social media are telling us, here's what you should be. This is how you should look. This is how you can find happiness. Like Michelangelo's father, perhaps that advice doesn't fit that individual. We need to take a step back and have open time. Go take a walk in nature, which is where I tell my clients, when you're feeling restless and bored, what do you do? Well, I reach for my phone and I go on. We all get bored and restless, but what can we do to take a 15-minute walk outside has been shown to relieve depression. There's research on that. And it doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't involve any incredible equipment or a product or anything. And no one is telling us what to do out there. You just walk around, look at the trees, look at the sky, connect with a source that is greater than our egos, and we can find inspiration. Albert Einstein, when he got stuck doing his research in his lab, even Einstein had these moments, he would go sailing. And out there in the water, under the sky, he would feel at one with nature, and he'd get an inspiration, and then he'd go back to his lab and solve his problem. Connecting with nature or connecting with a creative process. My colleague, engineering professor Shu-Park Chen at Santa Clara University, would be working on an engineering problem, something that I totally do not understand because my PhD is in English. He'd get stuck and he'd go and do Chinese brush paintings, which were absolutely beautiful. After doing his painting, he would go back to his lab, and guess what? He'd find the solution to his problem. Creative practice is a way that we can replenish ourselves, just like being in nature is a way that we can replenish ourselves. And these are a lot healthier practices than spending a whole lot of time doom scrolling.
Now let's take just a moment to pause and hear a word from our sponsor. And today's sponsor is brought to you by Silva Sessions. Now, if our topic of creative wellness is resonating with you today, consider the benefits you can gather from extra guidance and support as you navigate your way through winter, spring, summer, and fall. I'm inviting you to join me and my dear friend, Lisa Murphy, who is a certified healthy aging coach, and come to Silva Sessions. Now, this is a twice monthly creative wellness membership. Inside Silva Sessions, we focus on growing and strengthening your well-being and creative resilience through the 3 C's. Now, this is core care, which is understanding the benefits of movement and rest and nourishment, and creative care, which is exploring how creativity lowers stress and lifts your mood, and community care. Because being with other creatives, my friend, it is deeply healing and very supportive. If you're curious about understanding how creativity impacts your overall happiness and your health, and you are needing more joy and connection and creative energy this winter, come join us for Silva Sessions. You'll feel better and brighter, I promise. Go to the show notes, my friend, and you're going to see a link that will take you straight to the Silva Sessions registration page. Or go to www.bdi-create.today and you'll see a link that will take you to Silva Sessions. Diane, tell us about some rituals you have. Like, what does your mornings look like? How are you dealing with not immediately pulling your phone up to see who's on Instagram or checking your email? Or what are you doing that is keeping you grounded?
When I wake up in the morning, I do not listen to the news right away. I do not go online right away. I do not check my email. What I do is make myself a cup of coffee and meditate. And that's my practice. And then after I meditate, I do my writing. So the going within, having that silence, connecting with the source, because I find my creativity is very closely aligned with my spirituality. I have to empty my mind and my ego mind and all the busy stuff and my to-do list, all that goes away, and just connect. Have a 30-minute time period where I just meditate. And then I can create. And for a couple of hours, I write and get all kinds of new inspired ideas. And then I'll let myself have breakfast. I get my spiritual nourishment first. If I don't begin my day that way, nothing works.
So let's give us some imagery. So you get your coffee. Do you have a special area, a special room that you go to meditate? Or Do you meditate in a lot of different places? How does that work for you?
Oh, I have a special corner in my study where I put my coffee, and I have just a beautiful quilt that my friend Tina made for me. It's just a little quilt that I can kind of curl up in. It's my meditation quilt, especially as the weather gets cooler. And it's my corner. So when I go there, I feel I automatically kind of get into that mood. If I meditate and try to meditate out in the living room or in the kitchen, that wouldn't work for me because there are too many other associations involved in those rooms.
Okay, so are you on the floor? Are you sitting in a chair? Are you on a couch? Where are you?
I'm on a couch,
Okay.
kind of a day bed with a lot of pillows that I do needlepoint. So I have all these beautiful needlepoint pillows around, and it's kind of my creativity corner, my meditation corner.
I love that. I love that you have a quilt that someone made you so that you have the things you have around you they are heart forward items that make you feel cared for and secure and unique, right? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So are you drinking your coffee while you're meditating, or are you sitting very still? I mean, people want to know.
Okay. I drink some coffee before I begin meditating, and I have a set of kind of spiritual guidelines that I look at, my spiritual practice guidelines. So I get some coffee while I'm doing that.
Okay.
But then while I'm meditating, I don't stop and drink coffee. I have my eyes closed. I'd spill my coffee if I tried to do
All
it
right.
that way.
That's what I thought. But I thought, well, we're always looking for the person that says, I drink coffee and meditate at the same time. And, oh, let's do it.
No, that wouldn't work. Yeah, it's a question of sequencing.
Exactly. Okay. Now, let me also ask you, if a listener is thinking, oh, I would love to ground my morning with some meditation. How long should someone who is starting, how long should they meditate? And is it best to do something that's guided through an app that they download, which makes them have to go to their phone? Or can we just do it on our own? What are your guidelines or your suggestions?
Oh my gosh. I have a chapter on meditation actually in my new book, and there are lots of different kinds of meditation. I haven't stopped to count them, but there are many. I do a form of meditation called passage meditation, where I've memorized spiritual passages, like the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, and all the rest of that. And so I can focus on a passage, which keeps my mind from wandering to my to-do list and all kinds of other things.
Right.
Some people do mindfulness meditation where they simply focus on their breathing. Some people say a mantra, a spiritual word or phrase when they're meditating. And some people do movement meditation. There's some forms of yoga that involve meditation where you actually move your bodies. I used to teach yoga at the East West Center for the Healing Arts, and we did that at the end of our hatha yoga practice. So there are lots of different ways. It's, again, since we're all unique, we need to find something that works for us.
Yes.
Some people cannot simply sit for 30 minutes. It drives them crazy.
Yeah.
So I didn't start out for a half-hour meditation. 10 minutes, set a timer, and then work your way up. It seems to be the best way to do it. It's like running a marathon. You don't just get up and run 26 miles one day. You have to work your way up to it.
Exactly. Exactly. Such sage advice. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your confidence. I mean, listening to you talk, you've written books. You are a wonderful professor. You've got so many degrees behind you. Your confidence just radiates. How did you achieve that confidence? And did your creativity help you get to where you felt confident? Let's start with that question.
Hey, I have a couple of different parts. If you believe in internal family systems, we have different parts within us. One of the parts is this kind of person who was a first generation college student who moved around, who didn't have any, when people said, where are you from? She didn't quite know what to say. Where do you mean now? So a lot of uncertainty, right? And insecurity there, which could kind of get in the way of moving forward with confidence.
Yeah.
The other part is that I have this intense curiosity and fascination with all kinds of things. And then there's the spiritual connection. So I feel like what has helped me greatly is my faith in something much more than my own ego self, because she couldn't do it by herself. Creativity for me is reaching out and discovering and creating, making something happen that didn't exist before, which is why we have airplanes and the Statue of Liberty, which I find greatly inspiring. And in order to get to that creative confidence, we have to get through this insecurity, this fear, this inner critic that tells you, hey, you've never done this before. Who do you think you are? That.
Right.
And sometimes we can get through that when our minds are open, when we're out in nature, when we're away from all our usual reinforcements. And sometimes just by listening to that inner voice. One time when I just graduated from high school at Kaiserslautern, Germany, and my father was transferred to Norton Air Force Base outside of Riverside, I'd applied to UCLA, which was my dream school. I always felt like I wanted to go to UCLA. I didn't know why, but I just felt like I needed to be there. So I'd gotten accepted to UCLA and I was excited. And in my parents' suburban house, I was packing some of my clothes and my mother came into the room and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm packing up. It's August, September. I'm going to be going to UCLA. I figured I needed to know what I want to take." And she said, "Oh, well, your father and I had transferred your acceptance to UC Riverside, so you don't have to go away to college." And it wasn't have to, I wanted to. I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, we can't afford it." And she left the room. Oh, I thought, oh dear, my parents are having financial problems. So I rode to school with my friend Brad Parker, whose parents were similar, Air Force, and he'd just come from New York, who lived across the street. And we both were plotting ways that we could get away from our parents' houses and live like college students. So for the first year, I commuted. And then that summer, I thought, okay, my parents are not going to pay for this. And it wasn't that they didn't have the money, because that December, after I was told that they couldn't afford to send me to the dorms at UCLA, my mother got a new mink coat and a Mercedes for Christmas. So there was some controlling behavior going on. So, okay, I got temporary jobs as Kelly Services and was driving this old red Volkswagen past the newspaper office on 14th Street, the Riverside Press Enterprise. And I wanted to be a writer. And I knew that I wanted to be a writer. And I heard this voice inside me say, if you want to be a writer, you should work there. So I thought, okay. So I turned the car into the parking lot, walked into the newsroom as a shy teenager and said, "Hi, I'm Diane Dreher. I'm a writer. I'd like to apply for a job." And I did it before I had time to think about it. So sometimes just following an impulse, as long as it's a safe impulse, it's not like you jump off the bridge or something. And they said, "Oh, our college intern just gave notice this morning. Can you start work on Monday?" Yeah. Yes. I had a 20-hour-a-week job. I could work around my class schedule. It was enough to pay for my tuition, room and board, books, everything. Moved out of my parents' house. Sometimes the world disappoints us at one point, but gives us what we really need. So I was working. I got to write news stories. I got to work with all these reporters who showed me what it means to be a dedicated writer. And it raised my sense of confidence greatly. My friends in the English class, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I work at the Riverside Press Enterprise." Whoa!
Right? Yes.
So then, with that confidence, I then really did very well in my studies because I figured that this was where I was going. I then got a graduate fellowship to UCLA for my PhD. So I ended up at UCLA, but the detour I took working for the newspaper, somehow following this intuitive, inspired impulse, really set me up and gave me a great deal more than had my parents paid my way to UCLA as an undergrad. That would not have been nearly as exciting, because when I went to college, it was my college education. I had chosen it. I paid for it. I was working for it. And I was on the staff at the local newspaper. This was cool.
There's so much about that. If you had skin in the game,
Mhm.
if you understood the value of your education more because you were the one paying the bills.
Yeah.
Many of us went to college with someone whose mom and dad paid all the bills and they did not take school seriously. They walked away with maybe a degree, but not with a calling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and because you had that detour, it made you a stronger person because of the obstacle that you had to go around. So that is something
Yeah.
I've talked about with my students is that obstacles need to be looked at as invitations. Like, okay, what can I do with this?
Yeah. Yeah. A
Right?
challenge can be an opportunity if we just surrender to it and say, oh dear, there's nothing I can do. That's feeling helpless and hopeless. This doesn't work.
Yeah.
But to be able to step back and say, okay, so what's the opportunity here? As a college professor, I saw a lot of very unhappy college students whose parents were insisting that they major in accounting. And what they really wanted to do was major in music or
Yes.
art
Yeah.
or literature, history or something. And the parents saying, I'm paying for this. You will do what I say. And I thought, I never had to worry about that.
Well, yeah, you need to know that you want to get up every morning and just feel really excited about what you get to do for the day. And
Yeah.
your parents said you're going to be an accountant because you'll make money and that will be a solid job. That is, and numbers weren't your passion, then there you go. You're back into pre-Renaissance days where all you were going to do is make sure you didn't go hungry and you had a roof over your head. Wow.
Yep.
Worth thinking, right?
Yep. And the person who discovers a calling has so much more to offer to the world
Yeah.
because our world keeps evolving through the creativity of the people who bring forward their gifts.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And it,
Yeah, that is what creativity is what is your gift and how you take that gift and make it your own. That is where you are creative.
the reason that I wrote my most recent book is that there is so much stress and distress going on these days. And what stress does, as we know, it puts us into an emergency reaction of fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes.
And that's good if we need to jump out of the way of a speeding car. We don't want to sit and meditate on it. But when stress becomes chronic, it shuts down our immune system, our digestive system, and our higher brain centers that enable us to think creatively. And what we're left with is fight, flight, or freeze. So when people are stressed, anyone that disagrees with them, they start fighting with.
Yes.
Everybody who's different is the enemy.
Yes.
Or flight, they hide. Oh dear, or they freeze in place and feel helpless. And these three behaviors don't serve us to help us find solutions at all. So we need to get that stress out of the way. And one way, of course, is to have a creative practice, go out into nature, meditate, find ways to stop being online because that just reinforces our stress level and to really get to possibilities for solutions. I found a funny one when I was in grad school. In September, I was at UCLA at the orientation for the PhD program. And I looked around and saw that all the other people who were there already had their master's degrees. And 3 months before, I was still an undergrad. And I thought, oh dear, I started feeling stressed and fearful and anxious. And then we had a midterm we were taking together. So I thought, okay, what can I do? I thought, I will invite all my smart classmates to my apartment for a pizza and study session. And I will pick their brains and so then I will pass the midterm. I figured they knew more than I did. When we came together, I realized that all of us were nervous, even the people with master's degrees. And that together, when we discussed what we were going to be tested on, we knew more than we did individually because collectively we shared our resources. And so we all got through the midterm. And not only that, we became friends throughout grad school and supported each other emotionally. And that sense of being part of a team really helped.
That is something we talk about in the podcast a lot is finding a community where you can be supported, have some people who are cheering you on. And places where everyone can share ideas and just become a better person from what is being spoken about in the room. And if you can be the least smartest person in that room, it's even better for you because you will be learning so much from the goodness of the people in that collective room. We're all better collectively. Why human beings work better when we are in towns and cities and little communities.
And we lost a lot of our sense of community and connection during COVID.
Yes, we did.
And in 2023, the former US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said that we had an epidemic of loneliness and isolation that was hazardous to our emotional and physical health. And as Surgeon General, he felt obliged to warn us about that.
Yeah.
So, from what I know now from my research in positive psychology, we need community in order to survive as human beings. We feel lonely. We feel scared and anxious when we're by ourselves. Because when we evolved years ago as hunter-gatherer communities, we needed the community in order to survive. So we are called collectively to cultivate community. And that's, again, another chapter in my book, Pathways to Inner Peace. We find inner peace by cultivating community, by finding a team that we feel comfortable in. And we're more comfortable, we're healthier, but we're also more effective because, as you just said, we have the collective wisdom.
Right, right. Oh, so tell us a little bit more about your book. I know it is brand new, Pathways to Inner Peace.
It's beautiful. I told the editor I wanted to have a picture of this place I like to go walking in nature, right by the lake where I live. And they created this beautiful cover with a path surrounded by trees. So we have 9 pathways that I've discovered that can help us find greater peace of mind and get us from feeling disconnected and distressed to feeling connected again, which we desperately need. And these pathways have been practiced through centuries of spiritual tradition. They've been written about by poets and philosophers, and they've been validated by recent research in psychology and neuroscience. So all of these pathways, they're not only in Wordsworth and Emerson and Thoreau and St. Francis of Assisi, you have this sense of connection with nature. But now, we have real measured research. So yes, this really works. Walking in nature does actually relieve depression. Amazing. So there are 9 of them. And first of all, is mindful presence. It's very hard to be present these days.
Yes.
Because we live in a world of distractions. And somehow the corporations have learned that our awareness is something very valuable. And they want to hijack it and use it to sell their products in very many ways. So we're constantly being bombarded by advertisements, by social media, by noise, by breaking news, by all this stuff. So how do we train our brains to get back to being in the present moment when we've been so used to being bombarded? And there are practices that we can use. Jim Doty, who was a neurosurgeon at Stanford that I talked to, would take 3 deep mindful breaths in the middle of complex brain surgery to get really centered so he could do his best work and save somebody's life in many cases. And I figured, okay, we breathe anyway, right? We don't need special equipment. We don't need to buy anything. Just pause and take 3 deep mindful breaths. If it works in complex brain surgery, it should help bring us back to the present moment and our own challenges.
Oh, I love that. So many solutions to things we feel we need to adjust can be done by doing something that's free. You don't need any special equipment. You don't have to buy new shoes. You don't need to buy extra screens or tech. It is something that is just part of your being.
Yeah, most of these pathways don't cost a lot of money. Nature, we've talked about, is the second one. Community is the third pathway. And to have a sense of belonging, as we've discussed, we really need. And There's a psychologist, Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina, who says, not only do we need connections with people that are our loved ones and close friends and all that, but micro moments of connectivity, little connections with waving at a neighbor or saying exchanging a kind word or a greeting to the clerk at the grocery store, or that. Okay, a micro moment doesn't take much. Boom, there it is. What it does is it relieves inflammation, activates the immune system, makes people feel happier and healthier for both the giver and the receiver.
Yeah.
And if we do that enough, it can spread throughout whole neighborhoods and create a sense of community, because then everybody just, hey, hi there, So I read that. I thought, this is cool. So I'd be walking my dog around the neighborhood and I'd see a neighbor driving by and I'd wave and I'd say, this is good for both of us.
My husband and I, we bike a lot. We have a tandem bike and we take it everywhere. And there are a lot of people I would see and I would think, oh, that's a cute dog. I like that lady's coat, or what a cute baby. All the things I would think in my head, but didn't say out loud. So on one of our rides, I thought, when I see something and I admire it, I'm going to say it out loud. And so through my whole ride, I would say, oh, your dog is adorable. Oh, I really like the dress you have. And the people, their face would light up. And you were right. Made me feel better. It's a ride that I remember as being my inaugural ride to compliments.
Yeah, it's fun. What a subversive experiment. We can make micro moments of connectivity and we can spread the light of community around us. And it makes a big difference, and it repairs a lot of the losses that we've experienced through COVID and through our divisive politics.
Yes, yes. Our world is so binary right now. But when we can be out in public and we can just say to someone, I like your shirt, we can agree on that. And then we can bring ourselves together on something that small. Micro moment. I love that.
Yeah. So we can build community. And then another of them, these pathways, is meditation. And again, there are many forms of meditation, but one of them is to simply say a mantra, which is a sacred word or phrase. And this woman, Jill Borman, who is a nurse practitioner down at the San Diego Veterans Hospital, decided that people working in healthcare are very stressed. So she said this mantra. She had her own mantra practice, but she said, choose a spiritual word or phrase that's meaningful to you and say it when you're washing dishes or waiting in line or whatever, so you get used to it. And then you can say it to yourself. You don't need to say it out loud anytime you feel stressed. So you always have it with you. She said it's non-toxic. It has no adverse side effects. And the healthcare workers felt significantly less stressed after they did this.
Oh my goodness.
So she thought, this is really good. So then some of the veterans had PTSD. So she shared the mantra practice with them, and it significantly reduced their PTSD symptoms.
Again, it's free.
Free, simple. These pathways don't cost anything. You don't require any special equipment. So there are a lot of them, and each pathway has many practices. These are some of them. Another one is kindness, just practicing kindness and compassion, which can partly be micro moments of connectivity, connecting with somebody with a kind word. That's it.
Yeah.
Having a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. Research shows that we're happier, healthier, and we live longer when we have something to look forward to when we wake up in the morning. To live creatively is to live with a sense of purpose.
Yes. And for people who say, well, I don't really have a sense of purpose right now, I mean, you can go to a volunteer area and just volunteer to help pack lunches or read to children at school. I mean, there's a lot of places you can go to find out where you can volunteer. And the feeling that you get for volunteering somewhere, it is immeasurable.
Yeah, it's been documented as helper's high.
Helper's high. Yes.
Right? Research shown on that. And another pathway is intuition. That we all have this inner wisdom, this inner guidance, which helped me survive, helped me find my job at the newspaper, helped me not flunk out of UCLA. We get these intuitive hits. At one point when I was in grad school, we were all working for the University of California Press, and Ronald Reagan, who was governor at the time, this was years ago, cut all the budgets. And so we were all laid off from our jobs.
Mm.
And that wasn't really a good thing. But the week before, I had been walking around Santa Monica and I saw this restaurant that was opening up called Colonel Beauregard's Gumbo Shop. And my cousins and godparents live in New Orleans, and I love that food. So I thought, oh, this is cool. So again, my curiosity led me to knock on the door, and the owner said, oh, I said, when are you opening? I love New Orleans food. I've got family in New Orleans. And I said, here's my phone number. Call me when you're ready to open. It was pretty bold. After we were laid off, my friend Jeanette and I were sitting in my apartment wondering how we were going to pay our rent. And the phone rang, and it was the owner of Colonel Beauregard saying, could you be our cashier and start work next week? Oh my gosh. So I got a free lunch and a free dinner and paid for my rent and expenses. And also, all the waiters were actors. So when they were setting up or closing down at the end of the day, they'd be dancing around and I got free entertainment. So in the morning, I would write my dissertation work in my dissertation, and then I'd go for my lunch and entertainment and whatever for the rest of the day. And it was just really fun to work there.
Oh,
Following our curiosity is a way to, and maybe that was my intuition, I don't know, but we can be led to do things if we just reach out of our comfort zone and explore. Sometimes we find something really good. Doesn't always end up with a job, but apparently in my case, it did.
Well, there's a lot to be said for people talk about manifesting. And while
Mhm.
I am a firm believer that that is a real thing, but not when you make a vision board and you cut it from magazines and you put that on the wall. I mean, you need to take your manifest ideas and talk about what it is you want to do. And the more you talk about it and the more you talk to people that push you out of your comfort zone, the better chance you have of seeing the fruits of your vision actually come true.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works for lots of different things. I had years ago, my old Datsun sedan was giving me problems and breaking down. And occasionally I'd have to take the bus to get to school to teach. So I thought, I need a new car. So I was driving my boyfriend's car at the time and came out of the English department at Santa Clara. And there was this little yellow, beautiful little sedan parked right in front of and I thought, oh, what a cute car. And the guy was getting into it. And I said, that's a really nice car you have. I'd like one of those someday. And he said, you want this car? We're selling it. And it cost just as much money as I had in my savings account. Now, how does that happen? Okay.
Because you said something. You have to disturb the vibrations in the universe and
And
be brave.
reach out, follow your intuition, your inclination. So it really works. We need to make connections. It opens up doors of opportunity. When we feel like we've got to do it all ourselves and be the rugged individualist, that doesn't work very well.
Yes. Right. No. Yeah. You don't have to shoulder all responsibilities all on your own. But you do have to be brave enough to step outside of your comfort zone, to talk to people you don't know, and to go places that you're just curious about. Just into a restaurant that's not open yet, or telling some man that you don't know that you like his car. I mean, those are things that we're stepping outside of what you knew.
In a sense, okay, doing something out of routine is living creatively.
Yes. Yes. And we all love routines. I mean, I am a routine lover. I mean, it's just cozy, like wrapping yourself in your favorite blanket. But if you do that every single day, that's all you're going to do every single day is your routine. So yeah,
Mhm.
getting out of
Yeah,
eyelids is important.
human beings, we need a certain amount of stability, and our world is not giving us that much these days. We need stability, but we also need variety, because if everything is too stable, it's the same. Water stagnates if it doesn't flow.
Yeah.
So we need to have movement as well as stability and some kind of balance of yin and yang, as they say in Eastern philosophy. We need both.
Yeah.
And what's great about the arts is that the arts really show us new possibilities. they show us somebody's vision. Like, for example, Michelangelo's David, which he carved out of a piece of marble that had been spoiled, that was lying on its side, that no one could do anything with. But Michelangelo looked at that piece of marble and saw possibilities.
Oh, that gave me a shiver. That's amazing.
That's creative vision. And that's what we need. And sometimes it takes multiple attempts. Thomas Edison went through hundreds and hundreds of different filaments in order to find the one that would work in the incandescent light. And they said, well, you've had all these failures. And he said, no, I've discovered what doesn't work. And now I'm that much closer to what does.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, not everything works perfectly, and not every restaurant's going to call you with a job. But
No,
but if you don't try, if you don't experiment, you'll never find the filament that does work.
yeah, yeah. And it means that we have to reach out beyond our comfort zone in order to find that filament that works. And
Yeah.
the last pathway is simply the pathway of joy. That lots of positive psychology research has shown that despite the stereotype of the suffering artist, that people actually have greater creativity when they have joy because it opens up those parts of their brains that can see new possibilities. And a friend of mine, Catherine Getsky, who has done all this research on hope, motivated by the fact that when she was in her first year in college, her father died by suicide because he didn't have the skills he needed, she realized, to overcome stress. So she said the first hope practice for her is stress skills. We need to know when we're stressed and what we can do about it.
Yes.
And the second practice is happiness habits. We need to cultivate practices that bring joy into our lives on a regular basis. It doesn't just happen, but it would be something that we enjoy doing, like riding a bicycle with that tandem. When I see those, they're so rare. It always makes me smile.
Oh, we got a lot of cool bite. Yeah.
But, but again, laughter is amazingly healing too. I interviewed Norman Cousins years ago down at the UCLA Medical Center. He was not a doctor. He had been a journalist for the Saturday Review, and he was diagnosed with an incurable illness that was ankylosing spondylitis, which was going to freeze all of his joints in place. The doctor said, there's no cure. And Cousins said, well, if there's no cure, we might as well try anything. So in the hospital, this was before YouTube, he had videos of Marx Brothers movies and Candid Camera and all these old comedy shows brought in with a projector. And he found that 10 minutes of laughter relieved his pain and he could then go to sleep. And it also reduced his blood sediment rates, which meant it was a reduction in inflammation, so it could be measured. So he was feeling better, but they kicked him out of the hospital because he was making too much noise. So he ended up having to move into the hotel across the street, which he said had much better food and ambiance anyway. He laughed his way to health. When I met him at UCLA, he was jauntily walking down the hall, gave me a big handshake, big smile. I mean, he was totally healthy. And he was on staff as an adjunct medical professor, working with the doctors and med students about the importance of a positive attitude in healing.
Yes. The smallest things can bring about happiness. One of the things I always talk about, all the dishes, those beautiful dishes that we save for special occasions. You should get them out on a Tuesday night when you have takeout. Get them out and use them because they will bring you joy. It's those little tiny things that you treat yourself to, that you think you can only do when it's a special occasion, when you're entertaining. If you do that for yourself, you'll find that it just brightens up the day. It's little things.
Absolutely. Happiness habits we can bring to every day of our lives. Small things. Again, they're not expensive. We don't have to go to Bermuda. No, we can have something, do something special. Surround ourselves. Beauty, for example, brings a lot of joy to a lot of people. And just to look outside the window, and if you have trees out there, and to say, oh, so beautiful. Pause and acknowledge that.
Acknowledge, realize if you look at the things you have that you can appreciate, that you do value, that you do find comforting, it can kind of switch those obstacles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Something that you can tackle a little better.
Do a gratitude just at the end of every day and just think, okay, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? And there are always at least 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Diane, I feel like we've just scratched the surface of the goodness that is in your book, Pathways to Inner Peace. There will be a link to Diane's book. Can people find you in local bookstores and wherever you would shop for books? Is that right?
No, my book is in Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and selected bookstores that can be ordered by any bookstore.
Great. So if you go into your local bookstore and they don't have the book and you need it fast, go to Amazon and get it now, because it is going to be something that will truly help you see creativity and beauty in your life. Diane, you're just a beautiful person. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and sharing it with the Create Today listeners. I appreciate you.
And I appreciate all you're doing to help people discover their own creative gifts. That's really, really important. And you're shining the light out there for all of us.
Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. So, creative friends, we've talked about so many delicious things today. From the things that Diane has talked about today, find one of those pathways that you can incorporate into your life. Is there a morning ritual you can begin? Is there a mantra you can start thinking about? How can you find joy in your life? And start implementing those things to find a little more happiness and cultivate your creativity just that much more. And my friend, as you know, no matter what path you choose to take today, my wish for you is to stay creative. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.